Hello.
Hello.
Super excited for today, as I am every single week. Today.
Every single week. Every single one.
Every single one, because it's so exciting. And this week I had some extra time to prepare because I was editing the previous one and so many things were coming up. And I really want to try this format where I have 4 bits and bobs. And I have a riff with each one related to a certain set of literature that I've consumed. And every single one has a reframe for you, which I think might help. Yeah. So the first one I want to talk about is software created with Lovable is often insecure. And funnily enough, I've been reading The Wisdom of Insecurity by Alan Watts for the last 3 months straight because every single sentence is so dense that I have to...
I've never heard of that Wisdom of Insecurity.
It's so good. I have to sit and think about every single sentence after I've read it. Okay, so this is what I have here. Software created with Lovable is often insecure. And for people watching, Lovable is the vibe coding platform. It lets non-technical people spin up beautifully weird personal apps, dream journals, memory archives, mood-based tools, whatever. But here's the tension, right? Let's say there's a Lovable built dream journal app. You log in with your Google account, type up your dreams, mark them public or private, but halfway through you hesitate because what if the public was the default? What if someone accidentally or intentionally coded it to leak? Suddenly, it feels less like a journal and more like shouting secrets into a dark room. Which brings me to Alan Watts and The Wisdom of Insecurity. Watts says, life is inherently uncertain and that trying to create total safety isn't just impossible, it's soul-killing. And in a strange way, vibe-coded software embodies this idea. It's built by enthusiasts, full of personal expression, and fragile by default. You're not using some hardened enterprise stack. You're stepping into someone's dream world, and that fragility is double-edged, right? On one side, it's intimate and it's alive, software that hasn't been optimized for surveillance, for scale, or short shareholder returns. On the other, it reveals how little trust infrastructure we actually have. It's one thing to embrace existential insecurity. It's another to find your dreams marketed back to you. So Watts, so this is the last bit, Watts also makes a sharp distinction between belief and faith. And I know you've liked my essay on belief as progress previously, which is actually from this book, inspired by this book. Belief is conditional. I'll open my mind up to this if it fits my expectations. Faith is something braver. It's a plunge into the unknown. Vibe-coded apps often require that kind of faith, but faith, especially online, can be dangerous. So here, we're left wondering, can we build tools that stay lovable without asking users to leap blindfolded into trust? And can we honor the fragility without betraying it?
Oh my God. This is so great. I love it. It's funny because when you first said insecurity, of course, I immediately go to like security in the technical sense. And of course, he means it in more of the like insecurity and uncertainty and the kind of emotional sense. And they are related. I think that I love your synthesis and question of, this gets at Clay Shirky's old notion of situated software, which I think we've passed, that he wrote, I think in 2004. The notion about situated software is software that's situated to a specific social context, potentially a quite small one, 2 friends coordinating over a spreadsheet or something. And situated software, to anybody else looking at it from outside, it looks like a piece of shit. It's ugly, it's insecure, it barely even works. But to the person who built it, it's perfect. It's perfectly situated in that context. It does exactly the thing they need to do. If it breaks or it's insecure, they'll just patch it. It's not that big of a deal. And that, I think, is a very humanistic, bottom-up, emergent kind of thing that I want software to be like. I think Lovable actually shows the kinds of things that people have built with it. I'll link in the bits and bobs this next week. Someone shared with me a video that was on YouTube that they were served up, that's someone using MCP to build a thing, and they're like live streaming building it, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're putting in these extremely dangerous permissions and leaving it open-ended. Look at how quickly I can build this thing. It's, oh my God, you are making this thing that's fundamentally insecure for anyone that uses it. And so the question is, how do you have, if you're just using it yourself, doesn't really matter. It's okay. It's fine. Like if no one's going to find it, situated software, totally fine. If it's going to be used at scale, that's when the security starts mattering. And I would argue that it is possible to have both. To have something, how can you design a substrate that makes it so you can have this authenticity and you don't have to worry about it, because most of the things that you do just simply aren't that dangerous. Like in the way that software works today, there's a ton of things you can do that are accidentally really dangerous, about making your private key accidentally public and all kinds of stuff that just completely can shoot you in the foot. You don't even realize it's what's happening. This is where I think we talked about last week a little bit about the notion of policies moving from the app or origin level where they currently exist down to the data level makes it way easier to express policies and make sure that you don't accidentally screw yourself over. And that could allow all this kind of exploration via Lovable and those kinds of tools that kind of bottom up on ingenuity in a safe substrate where you don't have to, where it can have scale and authenticity.
Scale and authenticity. I think that's going to be highlighted. Cool. That's really interesting. Yeah, there is a paradox, right? Like vibe-coded tools do feel more human, more alive because they haven't been flattened into a belief-shaped UX.
Yeah.
So that openness does often ask for more faith from users in general.
And this is why
this
is why I keep on saying that, like, the app is the wrong vehicle
term
for vibe coding.
Okay.
It's the wrong thing. It's the wrong distribution mechanism, because an app is an island. And what I really want is to take the thing that you've got that we're using together and add a feature on the side or fork it or do my own thing. I want to remix and mix and match. And with software as an app, as this like bloop, this little thing, this little island that can't interact with anything, is like the wrong thing.
I think the frame here maybe is not the app itself, but we want to create creators, not consumers, which automatically means that the thing that they're playing with has to change its shape, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, they're unchangeable, they're static, they're fixed within that frame, and so that implicitly puts users into a consumer as opposed to a
creator
stance.
as opposed to a consumer, yes. And so much of the world is also just transitioning into the creatorness of it all from the consumerness. If you go on TikTok, everybody's making daily vlogs. Everybody has the clean girl aesthetic and they're all doing the things and everybody wants to be an influencer. But can everyone be an influencer? That's another question that, is, can everyone be a creator?
And but I think this notion of, on TikTok, it actually is safe to, and I don't mean safe as an insecurity, insecurity accidentally causing a significant, your financial information, where did my bank account balance go, kind of thing. So non-Turing complete stuff can be, it's safe at any scale. Maybe it's bit rot, or it's kind of memes that destroy society or something by having a conspiracy theory that's very charismatic, that is incorrect, that destabilizes society or something. But it can't steal your bank account balance, but it can. And that's where you get this kind of, either you have to deeply trust it. That's, I guess, this is what we've all had to sit with in the past for all the software. We have to implicitly trust the creators of the software. We never had to think about it too much, because those creators had to be relatively large enough to make it worth their while. And now it can be actually quite small. It could be some rando you've never met before who doesn't even know what they're doing really, and that they made the right decisions that isn't going to harm me.
I think the next bit and bob is actually going to get to this question, like a reframe that I have. And it's the one on, it's hard to have trust in asymmetrical relationships. Often, the more asymmetrical it is, the more you can't even determine the degree of asymmetry. Imagine a company that knows you better than yourself and everyone else too. Okay, yes, it's hard to have trust in asymmetrical relationships, especially when the asymmetry is invisible. The more it tilts, the less you can perceive the tilt. That's the real danger. Not just being outgunned, but being unaware of how outgunned you are, right?
Yeah.
So imagine a company that knows you better than yourself, not because it loves you, but because it's optimized you, tracked your clicks, mapped your behavior, seen you across devices, moods, years. And then imagine that same system knowing everyone else too. Suddenly it's not a relationship, it's an environment, right? It's not a relationship, it's an environment. And environments don't ask for consent, right? So compare that to vibe-coded software. It's fragile, yes, but the asymmetry is visible. You can feel the edges. The app might break or leak or vanish tomorrow, right? That's the honest risk, not hidden control. There is a weird kind of trust in that, though, right? Trusting a sketchy boat to take you across a river, because at least it's not pretending to be the ocean. So maybe the question isn't, can I trust this? But maybe it's, can I see the asymmetry clearly enough to make a real choice?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very generative. Thinking a bunch of notes. I love that notion of actually being outgunned and also being aware that you're outgunned. I was just thinking of this a couple days ago. If you were facing an adversary who is literally an order of magnitude faster OODA loop than you might not even realize. They're like, oh, I'm playing this game here. No, you're playing a metagame that you are losing. You don't even realize that you are losing because you think you're playing this game is a larger game. And there's something about that level, there's something very generative about that trust of this little rinky-dink boat that might leak and strand me as I'm crossing the water versus this all-encompassing thing that might be puppeteering me and controlling me. Those are very different kinds of trust.
But you know exactly what it is, that you can't fully trust it, but at least it's not pretending to be something it's not.
Yeah.
And I would rather actually have that, a rinky-dink, versus someone pretending to be my friend and they're not.
If they're powerful, like a friend who knows everything about you and is like the superhuman intelligence that can make a compelling argument on basically any topic at any time.
Are you familiar with Mark Fisher's work?
No, but maybe.
The next one I want to talk about is Rick Rubin. Okay, so Rick Rubin describes vibe coding as punk rock of coding, an aesthetic that could be interesting, cozy punk. What would the homes look like inside solar punk scenes? Warm, human-centered, optimistic. And then I have, that makes sense to me. It's raw, it's expressive, it's a little broken on purpose, but lately, the softer offshoot of cozy punk makes sense. Are you familiar with solar punk?
Yeah.
Yeah, so solar punk gives us visions of sustainable futures. Maybe cozy punk is about the inner texture of those futures, right? So what does software feel like in a cozy punk world? Warm, human, handmade, not frictionless, but friendly. Mark Fisher has this idea of hauntology, which refers to the idea that the present is haunted by the remnants of lost futures and the failure of the future. And I feel that in this question, Fisher might ask, are we building new worlds, or are we just crafting better mood boards for the same broken one? So is cozy punk a radical opening, so a rejection of industrial software logic, or is it hauntological? Just nostalgia, but in a new outfit, giving us the aesthetics of care without a structural exit.
Oh, wow. So hauntology, as in haunted, is the phrase, like the frame, and then how do you spell it?
Yeah, haunted, and then, yeah. So it suggests a sense of unease, nostalgia, and a feeling of being stuck in a perpetual present as a result of the absence of a compelling vision of the future. Which I know you've also written about, where it's what if we wanted something 30 years from now, and then let's just create that now, similar vibes. And he also talks about, you would love Mark Fisher. He had a blog called K-Punk, big internet critic from the UK, but has contributed so deeply to internet culture and has shaped, who we are today in a lot of ways.
Interesting.
Yeah, you should. And, his essay, Slow Cancellation of the Future, is one of my favorite things in the world. I think I might have actually shared it with you, but my essay, Slow Cancellation of Innovation, is a direct inspiration and a love child of that essay. Anywho, let's get back to so is cozy punk a radical opening, a rejection of industrial software logic, or is it hauntological? Just nostalgia in a new outfit, giving us the aesthetics of care without structural exit.
The same origin paradigm that we've used for 30 years, which is a historical accident, which I actually didn't really fully realize the extent to which it was a historical accident and just a hotfix one evening that Netscape did early in the days of JavaScript.
Yeah.
And so those laws of physics set the terms of what we can even imagine, and they are what leads to hyper-centralization. And they're not the only thing, but they're the primary dynamic that leads to hyper-centralization. And so if you just put a gloss on top of that and say, oh, now we're going to be cozy punk. No, screw that. The fundamentals are not cozy punk.
Yeah.
They're not true to that, the industrializing. And there are ways to be productive and economically productive and that also don't have to be in these hyper-centralized modes. That's why I think if you don't change the fundamentals of down here, that have led us to this.
Yeah.
And I think you just cut back into it, or worse, get into it but with a pretend gloss on top.
Yeah, I have some like examples here of hauntological software that feels like it's echoing a future that never arrived. I think Windows 93 is a great example of this. A surreal browser-based operating system that mimics a future that never happened. Glitches, vaporwave aesthetics, fake startup sounds, unfinished apps.
I'd forgotten that was a thing. Yeah, okay, I had seen that. Windows 95.
No,
yes,
93. Windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, or not boring apps like calculator, timer, weather that feel like interfaces from an alternate 2004 or luxurious retro future. The experience is half useful, half vibe. It's not the future we got, which was supposed to be flat minimalism, but the one someone hoped for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like lovable and vibe-coded tools in certain lights are similar vibes. If the tool is glitchy, fragile, half-usable, but emotionally resonant, it might be hauntological, like especially if it mirrors early internet hope that software could be expressive, weird, personal, and not just optimized. So it's like, I think we have to be really careful about hauntology. And I'm so glad Mark Fisher gave us the lexicon for that.
No, this is great. I did never come across it. This also reminds me very much of the web sim, especially at the beginning, had this kind of vibe. Canopio, I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's like this little nodes and wires tool that's like weird. It has like this weird like delightfulness. And there's a few other tools that are like this that are like very authentic to themselves. They have this unapologetic, like almost daring you to imagine a different future. They definitely feel like they are. And I don't know if you ever, Max Bitker, who I think maybe you've been at one of these events I do, who's currently at WebSim, and he built this thing called like Sandspiel, which is a little 16-bit looking game where it's a little physics simulator thing. It's really fun and engaging and weird, and that also fits very much in that kind of.
Oh, he's in New York.
Yeah,
cool.
he is. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Awesome. I actually want to keep today's episode short and really just want to focus on the bits and bobs that I've prepared for. And the next one I want to talk about is the one tweet from Derek Thompson that you cited, which was Derek Thompson's Antisocial Century. It lays out a tragedy in 3 acts. Act 1, bowling alone. Act 2, swiping alone. Act 3, talking to chatbots instead of people. It's bleak, but more than that, it's disorienting. Each decade, our tools got better while our sense of belonging got worse, if you really think about it from like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what's eerie is that like Thompson wrote Abundance, which celebrates how technology has made us like so much more possible in the world. Cheaper solar, better medicine, smarter cities, but abundance without scaffolding for relationship, I think it's like without relationship becomes an existential famine. So we have more tools than ever, but fewer real friends, more agency, less intimacy. What does it mean if more agency leads to less intimacy? More solutions, but fewer reasons to get out of bed. When people call LLMs their only friend, it's not just about tech capability, it's about societal neglect. The problem isn't that chatbots are too smart, it's that our social fabric has frayed enough that this feels like the best option.
Wow, that's really insightful. I wrote everything you said. That totally tracks.
Yeah.
Agency without intimacy, without that kind of real pro-social connection with other people, including people who challenge you. And part of the thing that's a tragedy if you spend all your time with a chatbot is it says, it's just a sycophant. It's like, it's the porn version of relationships. Someone told me to, as in, oh, you're so smart for thinking that. And as opposed to a real friend will say, oh, actually, maybe that person has a point, or they'll challenge you in some way that grow. And if you get the feeling of, oh, this one really understands me, then that's why to me, like I wrote at some point, the antisocial versus pro-social does it take you more into the world or more out of it? Are you embedded in meaningful interactions in the world or not? And it's too easy to fall into the faux intimacy.
Yeah, but I have another reframe here. So what if the problem isn't technology itself, but how we build it and what we sacrifice along the way?
Can you expand on that? Like, how could it be? Like, I guess what could be? Someone, by the way, pointed out to me the other day that the engagement maxing playbook is basically the paperclip maxing playbook too. It's like that what we'd worry AI would do. Like capitalism did it too, right? I don't know, let's just make them feel more endorphins or whatever, more feelings. And and we fell into that gravity. But like, so you're saying we could have built software that had different characteristics.
What I'm saying is I think it's about balance. So when we build something, when you gain something, you also lose something. Every gain comes with a loss. This is embedded in society, yin and yang, Brahman, Atman. You think about it back in the spirituality days, there it's in technology as well. And homeostasis in the human body. When you gain something, you lose something. So what if it's not the addition of technology and how we build it and what we add, but what, like the reframe of noticing what we sacrifice along the way. And Princess Mononoke, actually, I don't know if you've seen it, it's a Studio Ghibli
You know what's
movie.
funny? It's the single Studio Ghibli film, I think, of like the mainstream ones I have not seen.
Okay, you must. I think
it's a classic, right? Like people say
it's the best way. Honestly, it's such a great depiction of technology and the nuanced ways in which it has contributed to society and not contributed to society, and it really gets to the truth of it. It's one of the few stories I wrote about it in the latter half of my riff. It's one of the few stories that treats industrialization with moral complexity. So Lady Eboshi, she builds this iron town not out of greed, but to give lepers dignity and sex workers freedom. Her machines destroy the forest, yes, but they also save human lives. So it's not a villain story, it's a systems story. It's a trade-off story. We're living in our own version of Iron Town now. Chatbots aren't evil, but they're a seductive shortcut in a culture that's already thinned out real connection. LLMs could be pro-social, but not if they're built as replacements for each other instead of reinforcements for the commons. Analogue's vision takes inspiration from this nuance as well. We don't want to go backwards or reject technology. We want to build like Lady Eboshi after meeting the forest spirit, with eyes wide open, with reverence for what we're risking, and with the imagination to ask the question, what does abundance look like when you're not alone?
I want to read this essay. It's so good. I feel like this is a really important line of thinking. That connection. Every sentence you said, I'm like, oh my god, I want to like triple click on that because that sounds so.
Yeah, for you, I guess like my last question would be like, is this technology good or bad? Is not the question, but what wound is this technology trying to heal, and what new wounds does it risk opening? And it's okay if we don't have an answer. I think uncertainty is the best thing.
I think is acknowledging that technology is not like yep, it's all good. Like, no, there are things that we lost, and it can still have been a good trade-off. Yeah. But if we don't acknowledge the trade-off, then we forget about the things that we lost. We get stuck in these kind of weird, superficial facsimiles of the things that we lost. Like, yeah, we still got that intimacy. Do we? I don't know. Yeah. It feels like the.
I can send you my riffs, by the way, as like an emo as well.
Yeah, I would love that. That'd be great. I think just grappling with the fact that technology is not just a thing on its own, is purely good. I think this is what a technologist often thinks. Oh, technology, purely good. And anybody who doesn't agree with that is just getting in the way of progress, and they're just holding on to the way it was just for whatever. And the reality is much more complicated. Like, technology is an amoral force to great ends that are on net very good for society, maybe at trade-offs to the environment, but it is inherently a complicated force. And not grappling with that complication almost dooms you to make...
And I feel like I had this epiphany about, like, balance a couple of weeks ago, and I keep coming back to it with the trade-off thing of the gain and loss, the upward spiral versus the downward spiral, and, like... every conversation I have, I keep noticing balance in how do I respond to someone and how I balance out someone's energy. How does technology balance out the loss of other things in society? How is it adding, but how is it also subtracting? Like, from the macro to the micro, it just feels like a game of balance. And I also feel that as a society, we have been centralizing and decentralizing over and over again. Like, back in the olden days, we were all centralized to our little places in the world. There weren't airplanes, that we weren't traveling, and then people started traveling and decentralizing, right? And then people started setting up communities in those places, and then there was less travel, and then eventually immigration happened, and then there was more decentralization. And now, like, with technology, we're decentralizing and globalization is happening, but now I think we're re-centralizing again, because now we have this like internal need for a sense of belonging and intimacy, and no more passive surveillance, and group chats are more popular than anything on Twitter might be, and so many like deals happen. There's just more centralization happening again within the realms of decentralization. I don't have a full-fledged thesis on this yet, but this is like a line of thinking I've had over the last few weeks that I feel like is relevant to this conversation.
Yeah. And centralization, I was just reading someone's notes on Rohit Krishnan's old essay about averageness, and someone was observing, why do we see so much more averages in this world where you can create any content you want and distribute it, like see so much more pull to our average. And I think it's, to some degree, it's a fundamental characteristic of highly connected networks, is that it actually pulls you towards the average more close. Like you need little pockets, and you need little different average points that can then, and so much of like globalization and centralization in tech, as you reduce friction, it's now you get something that's more average, because the pull towards the just fundamentally gets stronger. And in the world of atoms, it's much harder to move around, and if you're like in your own little city or whatever. But now if you can talk to anybody no matter where they are, it's basically the same as if you're in the same location. That's great in some ways. It allows connecting with different ideas, but it also means that you're going to find the people who already agree with the thing that you want to believe, and you get more and more isolated. And then you get these pockets of community that are fully virtual and not actually real. And when you're real and you're living with with other people that challenge you and that frustrate you, whereas in virtual communities, you just tune it out, like whatever. So if the communities are all virtual now, then you don't get that kind of rich learn to live with it and develop and evolve and grow to be able to handle it.
And I want to end with a question, like, what does it mean for common tools with these online communities, and how they're evolving, and how they play a role in turning people from consumers to creators and giving agency back, but also the intimacy and agency balance.
I think we're in this weird, we've been in this weird thing, because information is infinitely replicable at perfect fidelity for basically free. Especially that's increasingly true. It will increasingly become true. It's been effectively true for a long time. It just will continue to get even closer to that asymptote. We've retreated into this barbell thing of maximally online and maximally cozy in these little communities. And I think that there's actually a big whole swath of kind of the mesoscale that's missing, because we don't have the like terminology and the tools to express the kinds of things that need to make that possible. One thing that I want, this is like a silly little thing, I think I had it in one of the bits and bobs a few months ago. I've had this idea for like years, and it's context collapse. So like when a thing you share in one context, it escapes the context. Maybe it's viral for a reason you didn't intend or didn't understand. And then it goes viral because the people are like, look at what a shithead this guy is, or whatever. Makes you nervous about sharing something in public. So what I want is a thing that like every view of the thing, I have to feed the meter, not with actual money, just with view counts or whatever. So I post a little tweet or whatever on this thing, and I feed it with 250 views. And then when it gets to 200, it shows me a notification and says, you want to feed the meter more? And here's a sample of the people who have seen it or the people who have interacted with it. And I can look at it and go, oh my God, wait a second. They're interacting with it because I accidentally used an insensitive joke that I didn't realize that was a reference to a thing that's whatever. And so no, do not feed the meter. Or no, they're liking it for a good reason. It's getting viewed for a good reason. Yeah, double it. Put it in 500. And then that allows you to get the upside of having an interesting thing with capping the downside, and allows you to express in a way that you don't have to fear that kind of accidental context collapse.
I think about the Nash equilibrium here as well quite a bit, and how you have to be able to win, you have to play long-term iterative games. You have to have like truly win-win situations, because if you play short-term transactional games, everyone's going to lose. And like, I feel like it comes back to that idea of we all have to be willing to play infinite games and be committed to that for human flourishing / societal flourishing. I don't even want to use the word human flourishing anymore. I feel like it's very anthropocentric, because who said we're the main character? So there's so much wisdom. Anyways,
societal flourishing.
Yeah, societal flourishing as a whole. Like there's
ecosystems. As in a broader flourishing. maybe.
Flourishing period. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much beyond us as well, right? There's intelligence, collective intelligence happening beyond our understanding at all times that is keeping the world going, that we have to trust in for human flourishing. Like we do not actually know. And I think committing to and accepting and having epistemic humility in the idea that we don't know everything is probably, especially moving forward with AGI timelines. Like it's an interesting place to be. But I want to leave that for the next call, and I have some interesting things that I'm reading right now that I'd love to bring up next week. But thank you, Alex. This is wonderful.
Thank you. This is fascinating. This is going to have so many things buzzing around in my head from all these interesting insights.